Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders joined millions of people in watching the GOP debate last night, and like many of us, ended up being overwhelmed by the stupid. I've got a clip of Senator Sanders speaking to Chris Cuomo about it this morning. Let's watch.
Senator Sanders, you're tweeting. You say you got bored, you fell asleep. What were you doing online last night, sir?
It was really painful. I have to say this to you, Chris. I couldn't go on the full 3 hours. I gave up after 2.5. Look, their view, it goes without saying that my views are different than theirs, but what was really remarkable is the degree to which they avoided the major issues facing the American people and believe that every single problem facing humanity is all attributed to Barack Obama. He has caused all of the problems. We seem to have forgotten that when Bush left office, 800,000 people were losing their jobs every single month. The world's financial system was on the verge of collapse, and our deficit was a record-breaking $1.4 trillion.
Okay, I love that. You're tweeting. You're having fun. You're watching the debate. Then you fell asleep. What happened? Well, that's an interesting way to ask a question. It was really painful. Yeah, you're not the only one who thought that. And I was there for the full 3 hours. So, there you go. So, I like how he said, look, I didn't hear a word about the need to address the fact that 40% of African American kids in this country are living in poverty. Nor did I hear a word, by the way, about racial justice. Or about any of these other important issues. Well, that's because they don't really care about those issues. I think that's pretty obvious. Look, there were a couple of minutes where they actually did talk about climate change, at least, and that came from mostly Marco Rubio. Now, what's funny is that this guy comes from a state that's projected to end up mostly underwater. Well, I mean, if it does, at least Marco Rubio might not be so thirsty anymore, but nonetheless. So, there's that, and then of course you had Ted Cruz screaming about how he's the biggest skeptic. I'm so proud of being a skeptic. No, you are so proud of not listening to actual scientific opinion. No, not opinion, scientific fact. Yeah, so proud. So proud. He's so proud. And then, of course, as I said, Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump went after hedge funds. Now, that was interesting. That's about the closest thing that they had to talking about income inequality. He went after hedge funds saying that he was going to actually raise their taxes and cut taxes for the middle class. Well, that's great. I'm looking forward to when Donald Trump reveals his plan. But don't worry. It's going to be great. Everybody's going to love it. However, most candidates on income inequality, their plans wouldn't really do anything but increase income inequality. For example, most of these candidates wanted a flat tax, which, once again, wouldn't do anything good for income inequality, actually do something bad, because it's a massive tax cuts for the rich. A massive tax cut for the rich. And even when it comes to a consumption tax, that is a regressive tax on the poor. You're taxing the poor more, even if you're going to cut their rates. You're going to cut if you're going to raise consumption taxes, well, the people who spend most of their money on goods and services happen to be poor people. Regressive tax wouldn't do anything when it comes to income inequality. Speaking of not doing anything about anything, we go to racial justice. Did they mention anything about racial justice? No. Not a damn thing. Now, however, they did take some jabs at Senator Sanders. Let's listen to him actually respond to that.
The candidates, as you know, Senator, went after each other somewhat last night. And they also went after Hillary Clinton, and they took sort of a side swipe at you in the process. Let me play for you what Bobby Jindal said.
Hillary Clinton is gift-wrapping this election to us. They are running their weakest candidate. They've got a socialist that is gaining on Hillary Clinton. Folks, you can't make that up. A socialist is doing well in the Democratic primary.
He says you can't make it up. It's stranger than fiction, basically. Your response?
My thought is, that the more the American people understand the kind of programs that exist in democratic socialist countries like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, and other countries around the world, where health care is a right of all people, where public colleges and universities are tuition free, where their rate of childhood poverty is much, much lower than it is in the United States of America, where you have much more income and wealth equality and don't have the disparities that we have in this country, where in many cases, for the middle class of those countries, their standard of living is a lot higher than it is in this country. And I know for Governor Jindal, it is easy to try to frighten people. We throw out a word, socialism. Oh my goodness, we're all supposed to be shaking in our boots. But I think if you look at some of the real success stories in many of these countries, there's a lot that we can learn.
I love that. I love how he went out and was like, oh my God, we're supposed to be so scared of socialism. How scary is that? I love that. That's awesome. Once again, pretty good interview by Bernie Sanders. And, you know, I'm actually glad that they seem to have been taking him actually a lot more seriously as of late, which is a great thing. And finally, I got to hand it to Bernie Sanders for at least sticking it out for 2.5 hours. Most people would have went crazy by then.